Welcome to the Bernie Miklasz Show here on my YouTube channel. Thank you for subscribing and I appreciate you if you would do that if you haven't done it already. And if you do subscribe, hey, if I say something you don't like or you get mad at me for a little bit, you don't have to unsubscribe. We're all allowed to exchange opinions. I like your opinions. I get salty with them, but that's all right. Okay. I'm a flawed human being. Anyway, thank you for all the support. I got up this morning and I was going to do earlier, was going to do a video on the Blues. I was going to say, well, get something up early today. I was all ready to go, had some research about how bad they've been at home, how they just get off to these horrible starts at home, how they basically don't show up enough at home, on and on and on. The special teams are awful. And I'm going to cover all of this, but I delayed today because as I was finishing up a hit that I had on Cam Wax this morning, I do that Tuesday and Thursday, the Chris and Amy show. I was getting text messages saying, "Oh, Doug Armstrong's going to have a talk to the media after Blues practice today, Tuesday," and then ended after a little bit after noon, maybe 12:15 or so, maybe a little later than that, and then he spoke to the media for 8 to 10 minutes. And the Blues are not happy. I'm not talking about the heck with the players. We'll get to them in a minute. But Doug Armstrong's not happy. Jim Montgomery's not happy. And I think this was Doug Armstrong's way to, make sure everyone understood he's not happy. And as if to make the point, so no, it is not misunderstood. As you've heard by now, the Blues put Brandon Saad on waivers. And if he's not claimed, he will report to the American Hockey League team. He's got a year left on his contract, so I don't know if anybody would claim that. So this was a contract that was okay for a while, but really, really started to curdle and go bad on Doug Armstrong. So the Blues could be, left holding the money bag on this one. Money bags that will go to Saad for basically playing in the AHL. So listen, before I get into some of the particulars, it's amazing to me how quickly things have changed. The last time I did a Blues video, I asked the question, do you believe in the Blues, basically? And, your answers were mixed. And I thought that was a really good response because there was no need to take a definitive stance on this because there were work in progress. But listen, after the coaching change was made and Jim Montgomery's first game as the coach, replacing Drew Bannister, was back on November the 25th. Man, that's 2 months ago plus a couple days. But anyway, things were going really well, which is why I was positive. I was upbeat. I was engaging in happy talk. I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't go back and change it now because they were 10-5-3 in their first 18 games. And they were controlling in terms of the goal share in their competitions at 5-on-5 especially, but also even strength, all strength. The Blues were, getting the lion's share of goals scored. At one point during this really strong beginning under Monty, the Blues were scoring in competition about 60% of the 5-on-5 goals, and their goals allowed went way, way down, and their goal scoring rate went up, even though they had some clunkers where they didn't score. So I was thinking, well, maybe the clunkers are just nothing more than, you're going to have some bad games where it just doesn't happen and you can't get the puck in the net. You struggle. But maybe the clunkers were a warning looking back on it. Because after that 10-5-3 start in the first 18 games under Monty, the Blues have lost 7 of their last 11. And it was absolutely embarrassing, this homestand that concluded Monday night. The Blues lost all 3 games at Enterprise Center, Vegas, then Dallas, then Vancouver. And these were crucial games because the Blues, if you remember, and of course you do, had moved to within 1 point of a playoff spot, even though they had more games in hand. So it was a little misleading, but they were making a move. They were going up in the ladder, and they had this wonderful opportunity to make a statement about, we're legitimate. We're going to be a playoff team. We're determined. We'll show you. Have a really good homestand. Instead, they were just flat out awful. They were flat out awful. They were outscored 6-1 in the first period in these 3 losses that we just saw at Enterprise Center. And this kind of stuff, then after the game, Jim Montgomery was talking about is the lack of energy. There was no energy. And the players were basically saying the same thing. And I really just have a hard time understanding this. And I think maybe it's because, and I speak for a lot of you, I'm sure, not that you want me to speak for you. How many years have we been hearing this where, somehow it's kind of, well, if you feel like playing, great. We don't feel like playing, whatever. We'll get them next game. When is it? I didn't understand when, effort and enthusiasm and energy. I've never understood why that's considered optional. It's mandatory. And so it's not this Blues team. And there's a lot of the same players that have really done this to the last 3 coaches, Berube and Bannister and now Montgomery. So it's not a coaching problem, although Jim Montgomery is an upgrade over Drew Bannister. Jim Montgomery is a really good coach. That's what makes this so not just mystifying, it makes it so maddening. So Craig Berube wins a Stanley Cup, the only coach to lead the Blues to a Stanley Cup. He took a team that wasn't the most talented team in the league, but he transformed the identity. They were just so strong on the puck. They were so strong in the offensive end and just keeping the puck down there, cycling and working hard and crashing into people, getting the puck back. Just hate the part of the cliche, but just blue collar hockey, right? And their effort and their determination and their intensity and their commitment to a style of play enabled them to transcend their overall talent base. And it was a beautiful team to watch, not just because they won the Stanley Cup. That was obviously the capper, but that was truly a team. That was a part. Here comes another cliche: a team where the sum was greater than its parts. And they had some good players. I mean, I'm not saying we're talking about the little engine they could here, but so we've seen some talented Blues teams here. But anyway, after a while, the music faded. They started to turn on Berube. He can no longer get through to them. They brought in Bannister. Brent Bannister did a good job of getting a positive response from that team last year after Berube was fired, I think mid-December. And, then towards the end of the year, they kind of flattened out. And then this beginning of this season was just awful. And Doug Armstrong made the right move to go get Jim Montgomery, the coach he always wanted to begin with, as we know, to go get him when Montgomery and Boston's front office got into it. Basically, that's what happened. And all of a sudden, Monty was out on the street. He was available. So Armstrong did the right thing. Montgomery's winning percentage as a coach in the NHL, points percentage, is outstanding. It's actually one of the best in NHL history. It really is. I mean, that's a fact. Among coaches that have worked at least 300 games behind the bench, we could probably move that up to about 315 now. So they turned on Berube, they turned on Bannister. Now they've seemingly turned on Montgomery. And how many times are we going to have to watch this? And basically, it is those of you who have been saying it is on Doug Armstrong. Of course it is, because this is the team that he assembled. This is a group of a roster of players that he invested a lot of payroll dollars in. It's not a finished product, but the Blues had seemingly been making progress. And a lot of the Armstrong moves, seemingly were working, and they were working. I mean, Dylan Holloway, my gosh, what a nice addition. And Philip Broberg has been a little spotty, but still, what a nice addition in those Edmonton offer sheet heists that he pulled off. And I can name others. You get my point. He offloaded assets, guys who were walk-year players, going to about become free agent. He offloaded them, got draft picks. They've built up their young prospect base. It's still rated only around 14th in the league. I'm talking about the prospect pool. according to the Athletic. But there's some good, really, really good young talent on the way. Dvorsky at some point will be here, although Doug Armstrong said today that he's not calling up a guy, any of these kids, and put him in a position where they can't succeed, put them in a position where they'll fail. And I think part of this is, why would you want to subject really, really young players to this team and this culture of players who think it's like, well, yeah, I know I'm getting paid, but I don't know. I'm not feeling it tonight. Don't we all feel like that no matter what we do for a living, or even if we're at home raising kids or, taking care of the family, whether you're a woman, whether you're a man, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's not a literal working job as far as you go for an employer and you get paid and you have to file income tax. A lot of times your responsibilities are at home, and that's maybe that is probably, in a lot of cases, the hardest work of all. Don't we all have days where we don't have the jump, we don't have the energy, we don't feel like really diving into what we have to do that day? We're all humans. And I think even with the Blues, they're entitled to have some off days, and where it's just not there on a given night. You can't be at the top of your game all the time. Every now and then you're just going to stink. So I'm a reasonable person. I get that. But when you've made a move up the Western Conference wildcard ladder, and you're right there, man, you're right there, and you're coming home and you got 3 games. And it's an opportunity to make a statement about who you are. It was an opportunity to make a statement about, are we legitimate as a playoff contender? Well, the statement, unfortunately, for us, the statement is no, we're not any of those things. We can't even show up in the first period and go full intensity and max effort. Just can't do it. And it's tough to watch. And as I repeat what I said earlier, I'll just say it again. It's tough to watch a lot because, my gosh, we've seen this so many times. It just keeps happening over and over and over again. And it doesn't really matter who the coach is. You could take Scotty Bowman in his prime, and you could take Al Arbor in his prime, and you could take. Let me think of some more coaches. You could take the Joel Quenneville, who was coaching the Blackhawks to all those Stanley Cups. You could put all 3 of those guys in their prime, if you could have the time machine, and you could put them behind the Blues bench, and they'd make the team better for a while, maybe a lot better, but eventually players would decide whether, they were going to sign in and like give it their all, or maybe I'll just kind of go out there and skate a little bit, just, I don't, it's a long season. I don't want to burn myself out by going all out all the time, I don't know. So Doug Armstrong, after the practice today, and by the way, Jim Montgomery ran those guys hard. He skated them hard, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. So I don't know if anybody lost their breakfast or not, but they deserve to. Doug Armstrong, and this is a quote: "There's been a group that's been here for a while, and things don't seem to be changing. Collectively, you have to start chipping further and further up." What he meant by that, the low-hanging fruit was Brandon Saad, because number one, Brandon Saad's been awful, and he represents everything about this Blues team that has now curdled and turned sour. Just not showing up for games. Well, literally he is, but you know what I'm saying? Not showing up to compete. Good riddance. So he was saying you have to start chipping further and further up. Well, you start with the low-hanging fruit, and then what's coming next? Who knows? Stay tuned, as they say, right? But in the last 10 days, 7, 8 days, whatever it is, with these 3 games at home, the Blues have had these chances to show that they're legitimate, and they flunked. They had chances to say, we can be in this wild card race. We can do this. And they flunked. They downshifted into neutral, and then they went into reverse by losing 3 in a row at home, getting embarrassed, as I mentioned, by Vegas, Dallas, and Vancouver. Outscored 6-1 in the first period. I want to repeat that. And it is a trend. It is a trend. And this is perhaps the most mystifying thing to me is about like how horrible this team has been at home. They weren't very good at home under Bannister. Let me see if I make sure. Yeah, they were 5-6-0 at home this season under Bannister. For a 455 points percentage at home, that ranked 25th at the time he was fired. 25th in like basically home ice success. With Jim Montgomery, 6-7-1. That's a 464 points percentage. But since he became coach, they're actually 26th in home success, if you go by points percentage. So it's more of the same. And the poor starts are killing, and I mean killing the Blues. Can I throw a few things at you? And this is under Jim Montgomery. You know, when the Blues have had a lead after the first period under Monty, they're 12-0-2. Okay, good. That's great. And seriously, yeah, a couple of leads got away, but they were able to salvage and get a point out of it. It's okay, 12-0-2. But when the Blues under Jim Montgomery have trailed after the first period, they're 0-11-1. And the problem is they trail, after the first period a lot, and they don't score the first goal of the game. It happens way too many times. So keep in mind, they've lost 7 games under Montgomery at Enterprise Center. And when the Blues have scored the first goal at home, they're 6-0. Home team, the thing called home ice advantage, you come out, you swarm the other team, you just bust it, max energy, max intensity, get that early lead, and just keep riding it, right? So when they can grab that lead at home early, they're perfect. They haven't lost. But, oh my gosh, but if you look at, with Montgomery as the coach, 8 home games. When the opponent scores the first goal of the game, the Blues are 0-7-1. 0-7-1. And in 7 of the 7 outright losses, the Blues fell behind by at least 2-0 4 times. They did not, again, I'm using the literally thing, because literally they did show up, they reported to work, but they didn't go to work. They didn't do any work. So metaphorically, they didn't show up. They were a no-show. In the 7 home losses, and this is what this irks me too, because Blues fans are phenomenal. They support this team through thick and thin. When there's a downturn, you don't see them abandoning Enterprise Center. You don't see them saying, well, I'll never go to a game again. Well, some people might, but you know what I mean? The Blues fans are incredibly loyal, and they're willing to put up with a lot, and they'll stick and stay, man. They show more intensity and more passion than the team they root for far too often, and that's really a damn shame. And that's what makes me mad, because people are spending a ton of money to go down there. And listen, it's a great time to go down there. I mean, the Enterprise Center looks great. Everything's great. The game presentation's great. The music's great. The lighting's great. The fun stuff that goes on, during timeouts and in between periods, great. The Blues do a good job with that. The only problem is the players aren't doing their job. Like, the whole Blues staff's doing a great job to make Enterprise Center a wonderful place to watch Blues hockey. The problem is the Blues don't show up and play hockey. They're there in spirit or something. They don't go to work. And that infuriates me, because in the 7 losses under Jim Montgomery at home, the Blues have been outscored 25-11 overall. Shame on you. Shame on you. As any Blues coach, and they've all said this, right? It's unacceptable. It is. In the 7 home losses, they've been outscored 11-3 in the first period. No show. No show. Don't feel like going to work today. How dare these guys? I mean, they get more loyal support and more loyalty and more people that care about them, Blues fans care more about them than these players collectively, not all players. Blues fans care more about them than the players care about each other and care about the franchise and care about their obligation. Blues fans have more heart and more caring than the team that's on the ice that is supposed to be setting those examples. And that really, really bugs me. It really, really bugs me. And I'm going to repeat, a lot of it bugs me because we've seen it way too many times. So you do blame game, you start with the players. If you want to, the next one up, not the coaches. No, can't keep bringing in new coaches and having players pretend that they care for a while and then they stop. Doug Armstrong deserves blame because, as I said, it's his roster. Tom Stillman's putting all kinds of money in this thing, spending to the cap, not getting what he's put in. They're not getting their money's worth. So it's the same old story, same old song, same old blues. The disease that's afflicted this team for so long, the last few years, the disease that has symptoms of optional effort. It's voluntary to care. The disease of energy depletion, the disease of me, the disease of I'm getting paid, so whatever. I was looking up something, trying to be, cute, because I was saying, well, I'm using this disease thing. I mean, why am I talking about it as a disease? So is there any disease that's got the name blue in it? And there was one. And if it was something that was terminal or whatever, I wouldn't use it because that would be, reducing it to, kind of trivial stuff. But it's a thing called blue diaper syndrome. It's a metabolic disorder that some of the symptoms are fever, irritability, and failure to thrive. The Blues have the blue diaper disorder in terms of the hockey world. Drew Bannister, nice run under him after they sacked Berube, then pull the plug. No more energy, terrible. Bring in Monty. Oh, they were showing off for the new coach, weren't they? Pull the plug. Where'd the energy go? Terrible. And this is all the stuff that's really kind of plagued this roster, really afflicted this roster for the last 3 seasons. Why they haven't been able to get to the playoff. A lot of it's talent. A lot of it is talent that doesn't come through and play up to its own talent level. And I was reading my friend Lou Korak, who covers the Blues for not only NHL.com but Sports Illustrated. Or excuse me, I take that back. Hockey News. Pardon me, Lou. And he said he wrote this last night after they lost poorly to Vancouver. Confidence is sorely lacking, leading to poor body language. When mistakes happen, shoulder slump, head sling back, facial expressions can be seen, and they're all in a negative light. The body language of this team, Lou Korak wrote, is really low right now. Coaches are at a loss. Players are not helping their own cause. It's causing plenty of negative concern right now. Concern. And that's all true. But that's the problem. We can say, well, they don't have enough talent. That's the thing. And partially, or maybe a lot of that's true. But what does talent have to do with actually giving a full effort and respecting the people that support you by buying tickets and buying merchandise and support management by, buying concessions, beers, hot dogs, snacks, whatever, sodas? Why can't you be bothered to respect those people who show you so much respect by showing up and turning out and putting money into the franchise? We can talk about, well, they don't have enough talent. They don't have they don't have 3 really good lines. There's still some weak links in the defense. The talent, I get it. I agree with you. But that does not cover up the fact that too many times, man, these players, they just don't give a damn. And that's got nothing to do with talent. That's called competitive character or lack of it. That's called not having, in the competitive way, not having a heart, not having a spine, soft, weak, whatever. And if the Blues are good enough to score the first goal and then win those games at home, well, why can't that happen more often? Why are they so dreadful at home? Just an absolute slap in the face, metaphorically speaking, to every fan in that building that cares about them. You want to hear another stat? And I know I'm stat boy, so I'm about to wrap this up. Nothing. I told you it's the first period stuff where there's no shows here for these home games. There's 7 losses at home. In these, this is almost like funny. I'm sorry. Sometimes you got to laugh at this stuff. It's so bad. In their 7 home losses this season, the Blues have scored on only 11% of their power play opportunities. 11%. It gets worse. And they've only killed off 47% of the penalties. So they've only killed off penalties at a rate of 47%, and they've only scored at a rate of 11% when the other team is shorthanded because of penalties. Blue diaper syndrome. What are you going to do? I appreciate every single one of you that sticks by this team, even though you get mad at it, as you should. And even though you get disgusted at times, as you should. And even though you'd like to see this done or that done, and you should want things done. You should be demanding. You should be asking for things. And it starts with asking and demanding effort from the players. They owe that to you. They owe that to this community. They owe that to this. And all this happened right around, the weekend where they were inducting more Blues into the team's Hall of Fame. In the middle of, with all that going on, where the pride should kick in and the players are there at the banquet on Saturday night and they're seeing Cujo and they're seeing all these people and seeing everyone getting recognized, and they're seeing the pride and they're seeing the history of the Blues and just the fact that it's such a strong fraternity. And that Blue Note is powerful in a room like that, because the Blues alums, for example, are just phenomenal. So when you're honoring your past and some of your great heroes of the past and everyone who represents that with distinction and dignity and honor. So in the middle of this festive weekend where you're honoring the best of the Blues, what do we see? Over several days, we see the worst of the Blues. A bunch of people who couldn't be bothered during a Hall of Fame induction weekend to care, to maybe honor the franchise that was with the players that were being honored representing that franchise. I better shut up, because I'm going to keep going. I could just go on and on and on about it. Maybe it's therapy. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope there are some better days for the Blues. And my optimism over the Blues, little too anxious, little too soon. I guess I never learned my lesson whenever the Blues turn it on for a while, right? I plead guilty. I'm just trying to believe in people that obviously you really can't believe in them. You really can't trust them. Another lesson learned. Have a great day. Thank you.